Hey there, everybody. How are you doing? It is me, Chris Herman, here for another episode of On Deck. Today we have Irina Samarkina. Irina came to us in a previous episode, you may have noticed. She was the translator, the Russian to English language translator on my episode with Alexander Brat. And in meeting Irina, I found that she had a very interesting story to tell, which is one of an immigrant who came here from Russia, who is currently a teacher teaching Russians not only how to speak English, but more importantly focused on helping many immigrants from around the world better acclimate themselves into American culture and day-to-day life here in the United States. And I thought her story was really interesting, so I wanted her to come back to do a solo episode. She did. We just had a great conversation, so without further ado, I bring you Irina Samarkina. Enjoy. Irina, привет.
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 Привет, мой друг.
Мой друг, мой друг, my friend.
My friend.
Yes, Irina Samarkina.
Samarkina. Yes.
Привет, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Irina, you are on deck. That's how we start the show.
I'm happy to be here. Thank
great.
you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So, for those that don't know, of course, when everybody will be watching and listening to this episode, they will not know the backstory, so I will share the backstory.
Sure.
About a little over a week ago, we recorded a podcast here on Monday night with a gentleman named Alexander Brat, who, for lack of better terminology, I would say is, a spiritual and meditative trainer or coach. Mm-hmm. I don't think he would define himself that way, but that for those watching and listening, they might understand and be able to relate to that. And because Alexander speaks primarily Russian, we had to hire a translator.
We had fun.
And you, Irina, were the translator during that conversation, to which you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We spoke for an hour and 10 minutes. It was the first time that I had ever done a show here with two people. It was the first time that I've ever done a show needing to use a translator.
And it was the first time for me translating for a YouTube channel.
Yes.
How exciting it is.
It was interesting. And I thought that it really went well. And of course, when this episode, our episode airs, it'll be after. But as we're recording this, that episode goes live tomorrow. So I'm really interested to see the reaction that we're able to get from that conversation, because it was an interesting one.
I'm very excited to see it.
Well,
I'm pumped.
Yeah, all right, good.
Yeah.
So, but during that conversation, and really actually before we sat down for the official conversation, you and I were speaking. And what I was able to derive from our short conversation is that you here in South Florida are helping to teach many Russians how to speak English, correct?
Correct.
And how to, for lack of better terminology, better work their way into into the culture here in the United States. Would that be an accurate description?
Yes. I teach not only Russians, I teach anyone who comes here and who would like to learn English, or I would say improve English, in order to achieve their goals. Because many people come here to the US for a better life, for better opportunities, and sometimes one lacking, link or a tool for that is English. They have experience from their country, they have idea, they have passion, they have knowledge, but they miss that little part. Lack of English knowledge makes them feel uncomfortable, stressed, and everyday simple tasks put people into this nervous state. Sometimes they panic to just make a phone call or to answer a phone call. And if you would like to have your business, it is important to know how to communicate. And that's what I help my students to do. I help them to communicate, to feel more comfortable here. And we talk about some realities here in the United States. We talk a little bit about mentality, because sometimes they come from other countries and they don't really understand. You may ask a simple question and people don't really know what you would like to hear, what you would like, what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I help them to kind of show American life and Americans, for how they work, how they operate, and how they think in a way.
Do you now? You're indicating people from multiple countries. So does that mean that you speak multiple languages, or are you working with people who have a rudimentary understanding of English, and that's how you're able to help?
Well, my students usually have some basic knowledge of English, and I speak Russian as my first language, and I've been studying Spanish for a number of years, but I wouldn't say that I'm fluent. However, I can understand my students, when they speak Spanish, but I would not say that I can teach, in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
My students know some basic English, but they would like to, advance it. They would like to speak better. And there are ways, believe it or not, I can teach people who don't speak English at all.
How to speak English.
How to speak English, and who don't speak Russian. I used to work with some people here who came from Central America, and they don't speak English. Their English knowledge is pretty basic, like hi, bye, and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. So we've been learning English together, and yeah, we had some progress.
Wow. Now, I mean, I've got a ton of questions, so I'm going to try and roll them out in an organized fashion. But how did you? At what point did you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
I think, it was really funny because I grew up in Russia, and when we go to daycare, before we go to school, we have this graduation ceremony, and they usually ask us, what would you like to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I got a diploma given to a future teacher. And I don't even remember how it happened when I said that I would like to be a teacher, but I have this little diploma.
So all the way from preschool.
All the way from preschool saying, this diploma is given to a future teacher. And, my grandfather has been was a teacher for more than 55 years. And maybe that came from him.
Mm-hmm.
Because he, at some point of time, he was a superintendent of schools, and I remember he always took me with him to his job, and I was in his office interacting with people who came to him, and typing on his typewriter. So I have those memories. So it was really interesting.
Now, is this the role that you're in now? Is it your business? Do you work for another company? Like how does it work? I mean, how does this operate? You do?
I work for a school.
Okay.
And that's my major job. But I also help people to gain some conversation skills.
Mm-hmm.
I myself am a member of a Toastmasters, public speaking club, and it's helped me a lot to feel more comfortable when I talk in front of the public. And you would say, well, if you're a teacher, you probably speak in front of the public every day and you feel comfortable, but it's not the same thing. One thing is to talk in front of my students who like me, who came to learn from me. And another situation is to talk in front of just anybody, right? Any audience. And I pass that knowledge and those skills to my students, and we have meetings, we have group meetings, and we just practice speaking. And my role in those classes, or I would say in those meetings, to facilitate communication. Because many people who come here, many immigrants, they find themselves in kind of bubble. They live in the United States, but they do not find anyone to talk to in English. Mm-hmm. They don't know any people who are born here, and they don't even know how to make friends with them, how to meet them. So unfortunately, you probably are familiar with some, for example, in New York, they have neighborhoods like Italian, like Little Italy,
Yes.
Little Russia, right? And it is pretty common here, and I've seen it in Miami too. We have Little Haiti, for example, where people basically live according to their ethnic group or background, the countries where they came from, and they feel kind of comfortable living there. Unfortunately, sometimes they get stuck in there because at the beginning they come to those places because it helps them to survive.
Sure.
They don't speak any English, so of course they find
being around their own people,
right? Familiar surroundings, familiar culture. However, they get stuck, and it stands in the way, of them learning English because they get familiar, and then it's hard for them to get out of the comfort zone, to start, venture into this kind of places where they have to use English. And my goal is to be in the middle, to provide opportunities, to tell them, okay, you don't have to be scared, feel comfortable. These are some topics to talk to, because sometimes people don't even know what can I say, what can I talk to? Can I walk to somebody on the street and say, hi, I want to speak English?
Excuse me. Простите, пожалуйста. Right.
I'm here to speak English.
Yes.
So it doesn't work.
Please, would you like this? It's true. It's funny.
So, and many of them have negative experience because of their accent or, the way they speak. People are like, what? Huh? What did you say? So they don't feel comfortable.
Well, it is intimidating to go into another country where you're not familiar with the language, even if you are. I've been to Russia 4 times now. And 4 or 5 times. And the last time was the first time that I finally felt like, okay, I don't know much Russian, but I can read enough of it. I understand the culture. I'm more comfortable. So it was the first time that I actually felt like, okay.
I actually wanted to ask you, how did you feel in Russia?
The first time was very overwhelming. We were there for a month.
Oh my God.
And
you're brave.
And it was very intense, because a lot of people ask me, they say, well, what is Russia like? And I'm like, well, first off, it's Russia. And they, well, what do you mean by that? And this is my experience, but like when you get off the plane and you are in Russia, you're in Russia. Like it feels different. Of course, the written language is different, and just everything about it is different. A lot of it is like some of the things that you have seen and would expect, and a lot of Russia is not. And I've said this a number of times. There's, oh my God, there's just so much. But you've got parts of Russia that are brand new and super developed and feel very modern.
Right.
There's the parts of Russia that feel like 100 years old and have sort of like an Eastern European historical feel. There's like the Soviet bloc stuff that feels very Soviet. That's like, whoa, right? For us coming from the United States. And then there's the people. And at first, as an American going to Russia, the people, they're not outwardly warm and friendly out in the street. And as an American, they spot you. They look at me, and I feel like now I'm starting to somehow sort of turn in Russian a little bit.
You turn in Russian.
I look a little bit Russian, and I don't stick out as much. Do you stop
smiling and frown like?
No, I don't. I still walk around smiling.
To blend in.
No, I still smile, and it's still me.
That's why.
But what I've always said is that when you get behind closed doors, the hospitality and the warmth of the people is like nothing I'd ever experienced before. So it's like this weird.
Did they force you to eat food?
Oh my God.
And drink?
Oh my God. I eat so much when I'm there. It's almost like I have to be sort of alone for about 4 weeks before I go, so I can like train and not eat much, because I know as soon as I get there, the food is just, and it's delicious and it's wonderful and it's coming and I want it. But after a couple weeks, I'm usually, it's like, okay, I can't eat anymore. But from the language perspective, the first couple times there, it was overwhelming. Now, I can get out.
Now imagine if you have to find a job.
Right.
And you have to open a bank account, and then you have to go to a doctor, right? So imagine what people who come here go through, because there is no way back for many of them. And that's why they feel what they feel.
Yes, and which is why what you do is so important. Now, here, for example, we live in Aventura. Okay, Sunny Isles is just right over the bridge, right? I mean, Sunny Isles, for all intents and purposes, is a pretty darn Russian community, right? I mean, you go into any one of those shopping plazas, and almost every business is primarily Russian. You walk in, you speak Russian, and listen, I get it. If you're coming to this country and there's so much that's foreign, it's nice to have some of those comforts of home and language. But yeah, if you're gonna try and make it here, you got to break out of that.
Right. And that's why many students, many people approach me, they usually are ready to make the next step. So they've been here for a number of years. They went through the adjustment period. They found some friends, but now they say, okay, what's next? What's next? They kind of reached the ceiling. Mm-hmm. Now they want to expand, and now they say, okay, now I need to know English if I want to advance, if I want to meet new people, if I want to grow my business, right? If I want to find new customers. So it just comes naturally. And I think in a way, Florida has its pluses and minuses for immigrants. I guess it's like New York, because on one side, it's comfortable. It's a comfort zone, but on the other side, it's kind of hard to cross into the United States.
Right.
Because I think many people who start living in other states, they go through those phases faster because they just have to adjust.
Yes. You don't have the community in Iowa.
Right. Right. You just have to accept it, but in a way, I think it's better because within maybe 6 months, you already feel that, okay, I'm cool, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I start getting it, right? I start speaking English. I understand what's going on around me. While here, people feel they're in between. They're not exactly in their country, but they're not exactly in the United States either. They kind of get stuck.
Mm-hmm. How, I'd like to ask a little bit about your experience coming from Russia to here, and how were you able to break through? Give me a little backstory here.
First time I came here in 2001 in May, and I have to tell you, I've been studying English in university before that, and I was not prepared to be this lost. I thought, well, I'm good. I speak English. I understand. I've been practicing it for many years. However, when I got here, I was completely lost. I was so shocked. It took me about 3 months to kind of adjust.
Okay, so where are you from in Russia, and where did you come to when you came to the United States?
Well, it's very interesting because when I lived in Russia, I lived in different places. So I was born in one place, and then we moved. So I don't even know what to tell you, how to answer that question. I lived in Kazakhstan, but again, it was USSR. It was the Soviet Union at that time. So I wouldn't say it was, what it is now. And then we moved. So different places.
Okay.
When I came here, I came to New York.
Oh.
Right. And I have to tell you, I loved it. I loved big city. I loved the energy, people, buildings, everything was so modern, so fast, compared to Russia, because sometimes when you live in Russia, you feel like everything is so monumental and so heavy and so slow, especially at that time. And then when I came to New York, it was like something from the movie. It was like, wow, I want to live in this city. And I was so lost. I didn't understand people. They understood me somehow, but when they told me whatever, I did not understand anything. So I was not prepared for that. And I said, okay, what was I doing in Russia? You know, I was supposed to prepare for this, but I didn't. I wasn't prepared. And there were a lot of funny stories, you know, when I was asking for directions, and then I got completely lost in the city. And at that time, there was no GPS. There was like maps, and you know, you had to just kind of figure out, go straight, turn right, you know, after 3 blocks you will find. And I was like, okay, what is it? And of course there was a huge shock on September 11th. I was there. I was in New York, and you know, that was another turning point.
So you'd only been in the United States for like 4 or 5 months. 4 or 5 months. 4 months.
For 3 months.
3 months.
Yes.
Were you living in Manhattan, in Brooklyn? Like
I lived in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Right, and I was out of town at that on that day, and then, you know, it was like, what is going on? You know, but I was not far from New York, so that was a shocker. I could not even believe, and I have to tell you, I felt how the world changed, because I could compare entering the United States in May, how everything was relaxed. You know, you could bring whatever, nobody really checked your luggage or anything like that. And then I was leaving the United States a week after September 11th, and it was a totally different situation, totally different reality. You know, the security, and everybody was so stressed. You know, we were like, we flew, and the whole way on the plane, everybody was just sitting, you know, tense.
Right, of course, wondering like, okay, are we next, right?
And I remember as soon as we landed, oh my God, everybody was hysterical. We were like applauding. Oh, thank God.
Well, I know, but also Russians also almost always applaud whenever the plane lands.
Well, we did it. The Russians did it.
No,
it was new for me. It was.
Every flight I've been on to Russia or in Russia, whenever the plane lands, everybody applauds.
Well, maybe it started after 9/11. Maybe right? Because
you might have been on one of the very first flights.
Well, yeah, it was a week later, so it wasn't the first, but there was still smoke, you know, coming up.
Well, I mean, that had to just, okay, you're from Russia, you're in the United States the first time, you're in New York City, which is like, I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm very familiar with New York City. I love New York City. For most people, New York City is extremely overwhelming.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like, where do I even go? What do I do?
I loved it. I loved it.
Because it's
like a big city. You know?
It's the greatest city, I think. I mean, I haven't been to a city that I've loved more than New York. And I've been to a lot of places, and I love a lot of places, right? New York City is awesome. But to be there, and then within a few months this happens, you got to be like, what the fuck? It's just like, what?
Yeah, and I was there, you know, no family, and I was there just by myself. Well, my friends were there too, but it was like, oh my God, what is going on? And people did not know what was happening. You know, I remember people were in bars saying like, oh my God, Soviets attacked us. Oh my God, this is gonna be a war. I was like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not from there. I'm just gonna be quiet.
I don't want to say anything and reveal my accent. Not at all.
Exactly. I'm like, I better zip it.
Wow. Okay, so this happens. You go home for a long period of time. You come back. Like, I'm just curious about the pathway, because you know, that's, you know, that, and here we are. It's 20 years later. Lots happened, and now you're teaching people how to work their way into the United States.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been back and forth, you know, and then, like I said, I didn't even think that I could teach English here, because I said, you know, who am I to teach English in the United States? And then it was, you know, it just came to me, listen, there are a lot of people who need English. There are a lot of immigrants who need help. And they are the ones who need English. So I was like, wow, it's right here. You know, it is a necessity. And, you know, what was also amazing to me is, you know, they say that the United States is the land of opportunity. And I was like, wow, can I even be a teacher here? And yes, it was pretty, you know, like I had to follow the process, and it wasn't really difficult. So I had to pass some tests that are pretty normal, here, to get certificate, and it wasn't that difficult. And I was shocked, because I cannot imagine that somebody who comes from another country to Russia can teach Russian in Russia. And Russian is not even their first language. So that was a huge, revelation for me. I was like, wow, it is really, the land of opportunity. I can really do that. And since that, I've seen so many people, and I've heard so many stories. It's amazing how people come from different countries and they experience horrible situations. I've heard from my students. I used to teach in high school. That was my first job. And I heard from my students who were basically, children, how they lived through kidnapping. They were kidnapped in their country, how they lived through unrest, how they had to hide, how they had to, they didn't have food. And it was just amazing, what many of my students went through. And I feel that I kind of travel in a way, because I learn about countries not from, travel guide, or not from TV, but from actual people who come from there. And since I teach them English, we have this relationship that is, when they trust me. And then, sometimes because of the job, because they have to practice English, I have to ask them questions like, tell me about yourself, tell me about your family, just to practice. And then they tell me all these stories, and some of the stories are truly shocking. And some of my adult students tell me how they were robbed, their houses were robbed, how they were kidnapped in their country, or they participated in different political demonstrations and protests, and how they were punished for that. So they had to flee their country. And it's amazing, just the stories, just how many people.
I can't help but to sit here and listen to you say that, and then you look at so many people in this country who are finding every reason why everything is so hard, so terrible, so not fair, so not this, that, as they sit, in the land of opportunity with so many privileges and so many opportunities at their fingertips. And then there's, the stories that you're sharing of people who have come from situations that are just shocking, right, to hear.
Right.
And now they're here. And I don't want to make some big political statement or whatever. That's not the point. But it's just I think sometimes we really I think Americans take for granted what is available to them here.
Well, I think it's just human nature, because when we live in, when we have everything, we just think, I have 2 kids, so they were born here. So yeah, it's a reality for them. It's like, okay, how could it be different? So it's just, I think it's just human nature. What really inspires me when I talk to my students is their spirit and their courage, how people go through horrible situations and they don't lose their spirit, they don't lose their willingness to succeed, their willingness to be better, to make it here, and to help their families. So it's not only for them, but it's also for their families. They want something better for their kids, for example. They want to give them better education, better opportunities. And they do not despair, they don't quit. They just keep going. So it really motivates me to keep going, because when you listen to all these stories and when I see, that passion in their eyes, I think it affects me too. So we're kind of interconnected, right? I inspire them, they inspire me back.
That's great. That's very rewarding, isn't it?
It is. I think, being a teacher is one of those very rewarding jobs, because you can see the results. I can see the results of my work when I see my students getting a job that they could never have in their country, or succeeding in their business. For example, one of my students had become a jet pilot here. And I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Because 2 things. Number one, maybe not maybe would not have been able to be that in his own country, right? And two, perhaps without your help, he may not have been able to accomplish that either.
Well, I like to think that.
How do you, raising your own two kids here, right? Do you primarily speak Russian to them? Like, how are you bringing them into this world in this country?
It's really hard because when they're small and they only hear, their parents talking to them, then it's easy. Mm-hmm. They learn, the language, the mother tongue.
Yes.
Right? But as soon as they start socializing, when they go to school, when they grow up, it becomes harder. And I think it depends on their personality, because my daughter, for example, she enjoys being, multilingual. She also speaks Spanish. And for my son, it's more like, I just want to take it easy. Don't complicate my life. Everybody speaks English, so I'm just going to speak whatever everybody speaks. So why do I need all that? But my daughter really has fun with languages. And I remember when she was in the daycare, when she was in school, mm-hmm. Teachers asked her to translate for parents, for people who came to register their kids to school and they didn't speak English at all. So they called my daughter to kind of help to translate. And she loved it. She absolutely loved it. And, being useful and being cool, she was called to help. And I think she still kind of has that because she also had some students in her class, when they come to the class and they're completely lost, they don't speak any English. Mm-hmm. And then she sits next to them and she can help them. And, she speaks Spanish and she speaks Russian. So it covers a lot of, people.
It's so interesting, we've experienced, we're experiencing that in our household because we've got two kids. Our daughter is, she's almost 4. Mm-hmm. And, my wife, Irina, she has, from day one spoken, only Russian to her. And I remember at first, I was like, how do I feel about this? Like that it's going to be primarily Russian spoken in the household. I went through a couple of adjustment periods with that, but as Sabrina has grown, she speaks really solidly good Russian with my wife. Her English has gotten very good with me. And so now I see how this is playing out, but I already see now, and Irina has, the whole time, she's like, listen, these kids are going to go to school and they're going to want to speak English all the time. So I have to get the foundation of this in now, which I support. And now that Sabrina's just starting school, she's only been in a couple months. I'm seeing how her English is developing. I'm hearing, like last night, I heard her laying in bed, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
It's amazing. It's incredible.
Right? And on one hand, I'm happy, but on the other hand, I'm like, it's happening so quickly that I don't want her to lose the Russian either, right? Like, I don't want her to lose that.
Right.
And I while at one point in time I was uncertain how I felt about this, now I feel my wife's position so much more of how important it is to maintain and continue to grow that language, because 2 languages is just, being multilingual. My wife, she can speak a lot of languages. I mean, I can speak a little German, a little Russian, a little this, but, I never really had a desire to get deeply into
because everybody speaks English, right? Why bother?
Right.
It's just like my son. He's like, okay, why do I need to bother?
Yeah, we took, when we were growing up in school, we were introduced to languages, and I took German for a couple of years because part of my family's heritage is German. Mm-hmm. And we went to Germany a couple of times, and my grandmother spoke German, so we learned a little bit of it, but it never, it didn't stick too much, right. and Russian now is something that, even though I don't speak it fluently and I don't always understand everything my wife's saying, I've got a pretty good gist of what everybody's talking about at this point in time.
Wow, that's cool. Russian is really difficult.
It is, but it's just like anything else. Some of it is getting comfortable, just being okay with, I don't know everything that they're talking about, but we're all together and I can pick up on little words here or their phrases, so I know the basics, Mm-hmm. It's funny because my my father-in-law, Irvina's father, and he doesn't speak any English. Like, her mom speaks some English, so we can find a good balance. But when I'm in Russia and we're sitting around the dinner table and dinner's over and Irvina's been translating all night, and then she's like, it's hard.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And I don't blame her. At a certain point in time, she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And this happens every time I'm there. She gets up.
You talk, right?
Right. She'll get up, and it's just he and I sitting at the table. Right? And there's that moment of like almost panic. You feel a little panicky, and then it's like, pour a drink, okay, and then we get out Google Translate.
Okay.
And we talk back and forth to each other through the phone. God. And I can tell you,
technology.
We've had multiple 3-hour conversations, sitting, drinking, and talking back and forth.
And I
Google.
think when you drink, you understand more.
Yes, it's
somehow it helps.
What is that? It totally helps. Like, you get a couple of drinks, and all of a sudden, it's flowing.
I've seen people who don't speak each other language, but they have conversation. I don't know how, but they do.
It totally happens for us, and it's bonded us in a weird way, where and it's so funny too, because what I can't get him to understand is that, like, for example, I'll ask him a question, right? And then it'll be his turn to answer, and he'll go, and then he starts talking, but he'll give like a 5-minute long answer, right? And Google only picks up like the first 40 seconds of it.
I see.
So he goes on and on and on and on and on, and then he hands me the phone, and I listen to the answer, and it's like I get just a fraction of what
I think that
done. But we'll go for hours like it.
Well, it's great that you guys are both willing to communicate. I think this is one of the biggest points. When you have motivation, it really can help you to overcome any kind of obstacles. And I tell my students, the biggest secret of, to learn a language is to be motivated, to set some goals and to see them, visualize them, think about what you're going to do when you speak English and how it's going to help you with your life, right? How it's going to improve your life and reduce stress. Because I said, listen, how stressful you feel every day. Just, understand how stressful you feel. Just simple tasks. Talking to a mailman, talking to, repair, guys, calling the bank, how stressful it is. Even talking to cashiers. Because in many cultures, the concept of small talk does not exist. If you don't know people, you don't talk to them. Right. Here, you cannot imagine. People fear small talk. They fear. They are terrified. They say, oh, my God, they're going to talk to me again. And I have no clue what they want.
Really? Oh, I never even thought of that.
Oh, my God. You cannot imagine how people dread small talk.
Well, I can tell you, I dread small talk. Talking about the weather, just talking for talking's sake is just the worst.
And they don't know what to expect. They don't know what they're gonna say, so they're not ready. Like, I panic. What?
That's so funny. I'm curious. After the years that you've lived in the United States, what are some of the things about living here that you enjoy most? And what are the things that were most surprising to you or are different from what you expected?
What is different is, everything was different because when I just came to the United States, it was a first foreign country I visited at that time. Mm-hmm. And I just saw that how different concepts are, they work for one country and then you think, oh, this is how the whole world lives. And then you go to another country and then it's like nobody has heard of them. It's like, what? So in a way, what is good in one country may be bad in another country. Or what is, for example, and I find it similar, with my students too. For example, in the United States, it's good, let's say, to have some ambition, to have some goals, to work for it, right? But in many countries, it's bad. It's like, oh, you're too materialistic.
You're motivated by the wrong
you're
things.
Motivated by money. how bad it is. And many people come with that mentality. And for example, in Russia, and I was born in Soviet Union, and business was illegal. It was you can go to jail for just not even having a business, but kind of attempting to do something like that. So how different it was like in that country, and it was considered bad, But then you come here, and then it's great, You make money.
Totally
good
encouraged.
For you.
Right.
You're successful. And I see that concept in many countries. I think in a way, again, I don't want to be political. It's just the way how people get money in some countries versus here. Because here you have a lot of, ways of doing it. And, just because you're talented, because you are, you are encouraged to do that, you're motivated to do that, you can be successful. And I remember that was really something that surprised me. Another thing that surprised me was how Americans are friendly and how everybody, gave compliments. Oh, I love your dress. I love your shoes. I love this. I love that. And it was really nice. And like you said, when you visited Russia, people don't really smile.
No.
On streets, right? So everybody's kind of, thinking their thoughts. And if they smile, it's because they know you.
Right.
If they don't know you,
it's funny. Every now and then I'll be walking around in Russia, and I just have fun. Like, because I do look different. I'm not that different, but I do know that. I do notice when people they look, they kind of just, maybe it's the way I'm dressed, or maybe I'm carrying myself. But every now and then I'll be like, I'll give them a little smile, or
like, what are you smiling at?
Yeah, exactly. You can see how much it catches them off guard. It's really funny, but that was like the thing for me. Again, it was out in the world, out in the streets in Russia. It was, very Russian, right?
Right.
But behind closed doors, it was just everywhere we went. It was every person that I've ever met in Russia. Anytime we've been inside their apartment, their home, whatever, it was always the most gracious hospitality and big smiles and big laughs and enjoyable conversation. So different from what I would experience outside.
Right.
And then inside, it was wonderful. And it's really, I've really grown to love it. I really have. I like
there is a cultural concept that, for example, some people are like coconut. They're hard on the outside and unfriendly. But then when you get through that, the shell, they're friendly, nice and soft, sweet, and mellow and sweet, And then they say, their culture is like a peach. They're soft on the outside, but kind of hard on the inside. When you get too close, you're like, wait a second.
Yes. It's so true. My dad used to say it differently, and he would say, most men who are like really hard and gruff and tough on the outside are like always like soft little teddy bears on the inside. And at first I was like, okay, because I was like just learning to come up in the business world and kind of running into some of these guys. So I was like, man, they're really like tough and mean and what have you. But he was right, and I've grown to really respect that. And I find that my more long-lasting, deeper relationships tend to be with the people that were a little bit tougher to get through to at the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes the people who are like, yeah, it's all right, yeah, it's all me right here. And then all of a sudden you realize you're like, oh, this person's kind of full of shit, and they got a real shitty inside,
Yeah, that's true. But
Peach.
You know what?
It's a good one.
When I came, it was kind of a relief. I was like, oh my God, everybody is relaxed. And I'm talking about New York. So I'm talking about New York.
Which most people think is like the toughest city in the world, right? Yeah.
But again, it depends where, what you compare it to. Right. So I was like, oh my God, it was so nice. People gave compliments, they smiled, they said, oh, here we go, this is direction. I was like, oh, nice place. What a nice place. I love it.
How long were you in New York City?
I just stayed there for a few months, and then I was going back and forth. Uh-huh. And you know what? When I came to Florida for the first time, I kind of hated it. believe it or not. I was like, oh my God, what is it? Compared to New York.
Right.
I mean, I love the ocean, but everything else, it was kind of too slow, too sleepy. And at that time, I came to Florida in 2003 for the first time. And there was no this, high rises. Remember, it was kind of like a touristic place, kind of laid back. And at that time, for me, it was like, I don't really like it. But now I learned to love it. And I think it's a good place to, to have a good lifestyle, good quality of life in a way. Because I think when you live in a big city, and for kids, when you live in a big city, it's a little bit more tough, I would say.
New York's tough. I mean, unless you've just got crazy money, New York's it's tough, right? I mean, just it's tough. I love New York, but I mean, and when I was younger, I used to want to live there. My sister lived in the city for a while. I just love going back for a couple days and just like feeling the energy and just being there and just the noise and the smell and just everything about it. I really enjoy it, but I also, and I felt the same way too. Like I moved to, when did I come to Florida? Geez, 96, 97, I think it was. So yeah, kind of similar,
Right.
South Beach was like still cool and like that was the thing, but that's about all there was.
All right.
And I remember coming here and just being like, oh my God. Because I moved here from Colorado. I was like, oh my God, it's freaking hot every single day is the same. It took me a long time to get used to that.
Yeah, you reminded me that there was no change of seasons. And at the beginning, it drove me completely nuts. It drove me crazy. I'm like, what is going on? It's like, because when we live in Russia, we have 4 seasons. Yeah. So you kind of, the year is passing, like we have snow, we have spring, we have summer. In Florida, you don't even feel it. It was absolutely crazy for me. I was like, okay, what time of the year is it?
Right.
But I think now I learned to appreciate it. I think you don't feel years going by, and you kind of like feel like, oh, I'm still young. I'm still 20. Hey. Yeah. So you don't really feel that time.
Well,
it's passing by.
Yeah. Miami is definitely a youthful city. It's got a good energy. And, you don't feel like the change of seasons so much. Right. So you don't have that, maybe that like internal introspective of like, oh, it's spring. Oh, it's summer. Oh, it's fall. Oh, it's winter. I mean, we're
so
starting to get a little cool
passed. Now. Right. You don't have that feeling here. It's like, it's summer. Just like yesterday, just like a year ago, it's the same. Yeah. So I love it. Yeah.
I do too. We do too. I'm curious, to kind of tie things up a little bit here. If you were to look like at this stage of your life and what you're able to do helping people, looking forward, what are some of the things that you would like to continue to accomplish for yourself here in the United States of America?
Well, I would like to keep helping people, and I want to open more, online opportunities. Last year when we were closed, we started teaching online, and I really loved it. I loved it so much, and it was something that I've been thinking about even before the quarantine, before COVID, and then it was just like, okay, now you have to do it. And I was like, wow, it is really, really awesome. And I want to keep teaching and keep helping people, and I think just helping people achieve what they want to achieve faster, just kind of like shaving off the years, instead of them taking it 10 years, they could do it in 2. And I think it's pretty awesome when they do it, when they really put their mind, into it. And then when they have motivation and they have help, they have the right tools, they have the right strategy, and I feel sometimes that I'm a coach, kind of, guiding them through and teaching them not only language skills, but also the way things work here. And I think that's when people are confused, because you can learn English in any school anywhere in the world. But schools sometimes, schools don't teach you how to open a credit card. and how to open bank account, how to have negotiation, business negotiation, how to react to questions. So I really love doing that, and I hope I will help more people. I have my speaking group. I want to add some, more days, more people into that, and maybe I will open a school eventually, either online or offline. But yeah, I will definitely like to kind of grow and have more outreach.
All right. Well, I wish you nothing but success in those efforts.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming and spending time with me. Now the second time.
Right.
So now 2 episodes. 2 episodes.
It was a little different this time.
Yeah, this one was different, right?
Right. Translating is different because you have to be focused on speakers, right?
Well, you did great in both instances, Irina. Thank you. Спасибо. Спасибо большое.
На здоровье.
На здоровье.
На здоровье.
Okay.
This is water.
Yes, I know, and this is coffee, so not really the full effect there, but thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.